At the beginning of the movie, we see a small, isolated island. A watchtower stands tall upon that island, where our protagonist, Mason, lives all by himself. From the top of that watchtower, Mason gazes out toward the vast ocean. He spots a boat speeding toward the island. This is the boat that arrives every week to deliver his essential supplies. As the boat reaches the shore, a man lets his 10-year-old niece, Jessie, step off onto the island. Jessie walks up to the front of Mason's house and leaves the necessary parcels there. Not only that, but the delivery team always includes a small gift to build a good relationship with their customers. However, Mason shows absolutely no interest in such gestures. Jessie leaves the parcel for the day and departs. Months pass in this exact manner. We see that Mason lives in his house with his only companion, a dog. His sole hobby is playing chess, which serves as his only way to pass the time. A few days later, Jessie arrives again to deliver a parcel. That day, Mason is inside the house. When Jessie knocks on the door and calls out to him, Mason finally steps outside. Jessie tells him that she has been bringing him supplies and gifts for months, yet she wonders why he never speaks to them. Upon hearing this, Mason coldly tells her that she doesn't need to come here anymore after today. Feeling a bit insulted, Jessie angrily asks why he is showing so much arrogance. Mason gives no reply and simply shuts the door in her face. Jessie is left stunned and begins walking back toward her uncle's boat. At that very moment, a terrifying storm suddenly erupts in the ocean. The boat begins to struggle against the waves, but Jessie tries her best to reach her uncle. However, the force of the violent storm causes the boat to capsize in the water. Jessie gets entangled in the boat's fishing net and begins to sink beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Mason watches the boat sink from his house. He quickly rushes out with his own boat and dives into the water to save Jessie. He manages to find her and frees her leg from the tangled net. Unfortunately, Jessie's uncle remains trapped in the capsized boat and is pulled deep underwater. Mason manages to pull Jessie onto his boat and brings her back to his house. A while later, Jessie regains consciousness and immediately asks where her uncle is. Mason informs her that her uncle has passed away. Upon hearing this devastating news, Jessie breaks down in tears. It is then revealed that one of Jessie's legs is broken. Mason examines the injury and carefully bandages her leg. As night falls, they eventually go to sleep. The next morning, Jessie asks Mason if he can contact any of her family members. Mason reveals that her entire family passed away a long time ago and that she had been with her uncle since she was very young. Jessie is shocked and asks how he knows so much about her. Mason explains that her uncle was his friend and that they once served together in the Navy. Afterward, Mason leaves the house to attend to his daily chores. Jessie, however, does not fully trust Mason yet. For her own protection, she steals a knife and hides it. That night, Mason notices that Jessie is having a terrifying nightmare. As he approaches her, Jessie wakes up in a panic and holds the knife toward him. Mason isn't scared at all. Instead, he calmly explains that she was just having a bad dream. He then teaches her the correct way to hold and use a knife effectively. As time goes by, Mason takes full responsibility for Jessie and begins caring for her like his own daughter. Jessie also starts to feel comfortable around him. She even gives Mason's dog a name, Jack. It turns out Jessie also knows how to play chess, which makes Mason very happy, as Jessie is a very intelligent girl. One day, Mason notices that the swelling on Jessie's leg isn't going down. He decides to head to a nearby town to get medicine for her. He immediately sets off on his boat, leaving Jessie and Jack alone at the house. Soon, Mason reaches the town and enters a medical shop to buy the necessary medicine. While purchasing the medicine, he intentionally hides his face from the CCTV cameras. Meanwhile, in a London court, we meet a man named Sam. He has developed a specialized program called EVA-ADAMS, also known as THEA. Through this project, the MI6 agency could hack into anyone's phone to conduct surveillance and collect secret information. However, the judge rules that this program violates fundamental human rights. Sam argues that this program allowed them to stop major terrorist attacks and eliminate several high-profile criminals. He believes the government should thank him rather than shut it down. Nevertheless, the court orders the program to be closed and tells Sam to retire. Later, Sam meets with Prime Minister Daniel. Daniel already knows the importance of the program, but with elections approaching, he doesn't want to take any political risks. He also advises Sam to take a temporary retirement. Sam is eventually forced to agree. Back at the town, Mason picks up some new clothes for Jessie. However, while leaving, he accidentally appears in the background of a video being filmed by some TikTokers. Instantly, the ADAMS program identifies Mason's presence through that video. Surprisingly, the system flags Mason's face as an international terrorist involved in multiple bombings. An agent named Rose immediately orders a military force to be sent to capture Mason. Meanwhile, Mason returns home and Ray bandages Jesse's broken leg. Jesse is delighted to receive the new clothes. That night, while they are eating dinner together, Mason suddenly hears a noise outside. He looks out and sees several military boats heading toward the island. Mason quickly tells Jesse to hide in the bathroom. He leaves Jack at the door and prepares himself before heading out. By then, the officers have landed on the shore, with Rose guiding them remotely. Mason, however, had already set up various traps around the area. Using those traps, he launches a sudden attack on the forces. The officers spot Mason and open fire, but Mason is not an easy target. He begins taking down the soldiers one by one in a terrifyingly efficient manner. He is so professional that no one can stand against him. During the chaos, one soldier manages to break into the house. When Jack jumps on him, the soldier shoots and kills the dog instantly. Hearing the gunshot, Jessie is frozen with fear. Overcome with rage, she lunges at the officer. However, the officer overpowers her, grabs her, and carries her out of the house. Mason continues to eliminate the remaining officers, but he suddenly notices someone running away with Jessie. Mason quickly takes aim and kills the officer with a precise headshot. Mason rushes to Jessie and tells her they must leave immediately. When they return to the house, Jessie sees Jack's lifeless body and bursts into tears, but they have no time to waste. Without further delay, Mason takes Jessie and quickly escapes the island. Back at the command center, Rose is stunned after watching the failed operation on camera. She realizes Mason is no ordinary person. She immediately hires their most dangerous Delta officer, a man named John. Meanwhile, Mason and Jessie reach a town. Jessie notices that Mason's hand is injured and urges him to see a doctor. Mason says they don't have time for a doctor and must find a car to escape as fast as possible. Jessie asks again why these people are after them. Mason explains that they are all connected to his past. The mystery of his past and why MI6 is hunting him will be revealed later in the story. Mason then teaches Jessie how to handle a gun before they break into a house to steal car keys. While searching for the keys, a young boy spots him. Suddenly, the boy's father appears from behind and points a gun at Mason. In a quick turn of events, Jessie points her gun at the man, holding him hostage. She clarifies that they aren't thieves and asks the man to bandage Mason's wound. The man eventually agrees and bandages Mason's hand. In another development, Rose and her team discover that the terrorist profile matched to Mason's face is actually a fake. Someone has conspired to link his identity to terrorism. Even more shocking is the fact that Mason's entire file had been deleted under the claim that he was dead. In reality, Mason was one of MI6's most dangerous agents. Rose is bewildered by these findings and realizes she needs to speak with her boss, Sam, to understand the situation better. Meanwhile, Sam discovers that Mason has suddenly resurfaced. The news makes him break into a cold sweat. He immediately sends a message to the Delta officer, John, ordering him to kill both Mason and the girl the moment he sees them. The man whose house Mason is in gives him his car keys. Just as Mason is about to leave, he sees police cars surrounding the house. It turns out the man's son got scared and called the police. Mason tells everyone to hide inside the room for safety. Rose is monitoring this entire mission from a distance. As the police approach, the man of the house tries to run away. At that exact moment, John uses a sniper rifle to kill him with a clean headshot. Mason quickly pulls the man's son to safety and instructs him to hide there. Afterward, Mason takes Jessie and exits through the back way. However, the police are stationed there as well. Mason instantly kills everyone in his path, takes their weapons, hijacks a car, and escapes from the scene with Jessie. John immediately begins to chase their car. But catching Mason is not that easy. Even though Mason increases his speed significantly, John continues his relentless attempt to catch him. A high-stakes race begins on the dirt road. Mason uses his extraordinary driving skills to maneuver John's car to the front and rams into it. Consequently, John's car flips over and crashes violently. Fortunately, John survives the crash, but by then, Mason has already vanished with his car. John becomes furious and starts walking along the road alone. When a policeman approaches to stop him, John shoots and kills the officer without hesitation. He then hijacks a woman's car and sets off again with the sole intention of killing Mason. Meanwhile, Rose calls her boss, Sam, to find out why Mason's file was deleted. Sam informs her that a few years ago, he created a special force called Black Kite. Mason was the captain of that elite force. Mason's primary job was to eliminate the world's most dangerous mafias according to Sam's direct orders. At one point, Sam assigned him to kill a foreign mafia member named Herrick, who was supposedly a major threat to the country. However, Mason refused the mission. Sam claims Mason likely got involved with those mafias and left the agency after that incident. Sam adds that Mason was the most dangerous officer he ever trained. Therefore, Sam orders Rose to send as many military personnel as possible to kill him. Rose temporarily agrees, but does not fully believe Sam's explanation. She investigates the matter with her colleagues and discovers that the person Mason was ordered to kill was not a mafia member at all. Instead, he was a scientist who had discovered a cure for cancer. Sam wanted him killed because he had taken bribes from major hospitals. If a cheap cancer treatment entered the market, the hospital's multi-billion-dollar profits would be destroyed. This is the real reason why Mason disobeyed the order and opposed the force. Meanwhile, Sam realizes through a hidden camera that Rose has started to suspect him. Elsewhere, Mason and Jesse are still driving to an unknown destination. Jesse asks if Mason is taking her to see his family. Mason reveals that he grew up in an orphanage and has no family of his own. Afterward, they reach a church. Although they step out very carefully, the surveillance cameras there identify them immediately. Sam gets their location again and instantly sends it to John. At the church, Mason meets a man named Rick, who once served with him in the Navy. Rick asks Mason who the little girl is. Mason explains that he met her at the wrong time, and because of that, she is now caught up in this dangerous trouble. Afterward, they go to Rick's house. By hacking into the EVA program, Rick realizes why the MI6 force is pursuing Mason. It is because someone has framed Mason by changing his identity to that of a terrorist. Mason understands that no one but Sam could have orchestrated this. You can already guess how Mason feels about this discovery. Because of the danger, Mason wants to leave Jesse with Rick for her safety. However, Rick does not agree to this. At that moment, Jesse enters and reveals that Rick has cancer. She realized this after seeing his medication in the room. Mason is stunned to hear this news. Rick had been hiding his illness from him all this time. Rick explains that he found out about the cancer 5 months ago and has very little time left to live. Therefore, he cannot take responsibility for Jesse in his current condition. Afterward, they decide to seek help from a Korean mafia boss named Chet. In this desperate situation, Chet is the only person who can help them. Rick goes outside to prepare the car. Suddenly, Mason senses that something is wrong. In fact, John has already reached the house. John immediately launches an attack on Mason. A terrifying and brutal fight begins between the two. Both are incredibly skilled, and neither is backing down. However, John eventually proves to be no match for Mason's experience. Mason beats John brutally, grabs Jesse, and boards the car with Rick to escape. John fires several shots at the departing vehicle, but they fail to hit the target. Jesse asks who that man was. Rick explains that he is Mason's new god of death, who now carries out assassinations for MI6. Later, Mason and Jesse go to a town alone to meet Chet. Crying, Jesse tells Mason that she wants to stay with him. Mason explains that staying with him will only put her life in constant danger. Moreover, he needs to stay behind to finish this conflict once and for all. That night, they head to a club. As soon as they enter, their footage is caught on camera again. Both Sam and Rose learn of their location. Rose sends her team to rescue Jesse, while Sam sends his elite team to eliminate both Mason and the girl. Inside the club, Mason meets Mr. Chet. Chet is the most dangerous mafia leader in the area. Chet is shocked to see Mason because he believed Mason died years ago. Mason demands that Jesse be sent to Spain with a new identity and a large sum of money. Mr. Chet refuses to cooperate at first. Then, Mason threatens him, stating that his hackers have detailed information about the girls hidden in Chet's shipping containers. If that information reaches MI6, Chet's multi-billion-dollar illegal business will be destroyed instantly. Chet realizes he is in a major trap. Finally, Chet is forced to provide the passport and money, mentioning that his men are waiting for Jesse at the shore. Mason quickly starts to escort Jesse out of the club. However, by then, Rose's team has entered the building and begun searching for Jesse. Realizing the threat, Mason begins his counter-mission. One by one, he starts sending the agents to their graves. Meanwhile, Sam's ruthless elite team also arrives at the club. Mason begins to take down everyone in his path. The club is soon filled with lifeless bodies. Amidst this total chaos, an officer manages to capture Jesse. Mason immediately calls Rick for help. Rick hacks the surveillance cameras and informs Mason that Jesse has been forced into a black van. As Mason exits the club, he unleashes a wave of total destruction. He single-handedly chases down and kills every enemy. After eliminating the threats, he finally rescues Jesse. Jesse now fully understands that the danger Mason spoke of is truly terrifying. Meanwhile, John also arrives at the scene. Mason and Jesse quickly flee the area. John starts firing his weapon the moment he spots them. Somehow managing to escape the gunfire, they reach the shore within a short time. Chet's men are already waiting there with a boat. Mason tells Jesse to be very careful. Jesse looks at Mason and tells him that in these few days, he has become like family to her. Therefore, it is incredibly painful for her to leave him. Mason comforts her, promising that nothing will happen to him and that he will return to her one day. Suddenly, shots are fired from the distance. Mason quickly puts Jesse on the boat and sends it off. The boat speeds away, taking Jesse to safety. Mason is deeply saddened to see her go, but he knows he has no other choice. He notices that John has already reached the shore. The two of them begin an intense gunfight. After a long exchange of fire, they both run out of ammunition. They then engage in a final, brutal physical confrontation. This fight is arguably the best scene in the movie as they trade powerful punches. John, the #1 agent of MI6, tries his hardest to kill Mason. However, Mason proves that the skill of a true fighter does not fade with age. In the final moments, Mason uses a heavy iron chain to beat John severely. Consequently, Sam's most dangerous agent dies at Mason's hands. The next day, when Sam looks outside his house, he is horrified to see that someone has incapacitated all of his security guards. Seeing this, Sam loses his composure entirely. He realizes that his death is imminent. In reality, Mason has already infiltrated the house. Seeing Mason, Sam tries to manipulate him one last time. He suggests that they should always prioritize money and invites Mason to run MI6 with him again. Mason replies that if he had wanted to do that, he would have done it 10 years ago. Without another word, Mason immediately shoots Sam in the head. 1 month later, the scene shifts to Spain, where we see Jessie. She is sitting peacefully in a restaurant. Rose is still monitoring her through the surveillance program. Rose expected that Mason would eventually return to Jessie and has been waiting for that day. Suddenly, the camera pans upward. We are led to believe that Mason has finally arrived. At that moment, a gift is delivered to Jessie. Jessie is overjoyed upon receiving the gift because she realizes that Mason is still alive and is right there with her. The action thriller movie concludes with this beautiful and heartwarming scene.